to Pilates Sculpt today. So for today's session, we're going to set our devices. We've got a 45-minute workout, and we're going to start by having our feet shoulder width apart. We'll have that rib cage over the pelvis. We're going to draw those shoulders back. We're going to glide those shoulders up towards our ears. We're going to keep that length through the body. We're going to keep that gap between the chin and the chest, and keeping that width across that body for me, keeping that length through that spine. So we want to make sure we've got a nice ventilated room. Obviously, if you're a little bit chilly or you're a little bit warm, then obviously adjust your ventilation accordingly. We're going to have some hand weights for today's class, but we're predominantly going to be working with our body weight today. So we keep that width across that chest, keeping that rib cage over the pelvis. Let's keep that head and that neck nice and long and lengthened. We want to keep that gap between the ears and the shoulders, keeping that space between the rib and the hips. And we're going to do that just 3 more times. So we want to make sure that we work in a pain-free range of motion at all times, and we work within our capabilities. And a last repetition, please. So we get that space between the ears and the shoulders. We're going to turn those fingers down, we're going to lengthen the fingertips to the floor. We're going to open up those palms, and we're going to take them to the back. And then we're going to gently draw the arms out and wider until we get those arms all the way up in line with the shoulders. Each time we're keeping those bodies nice and long and lengthened, keeping that gap between the chin and the chest. And we're going to scissor the arms all the way down, keeping that width across that body, keeping that gap between the ears and the shoulders, and keeping that head and that neck nice and long. So we keep that space between the ears and the shoulders, and we want to keep those ribs over the pelvis. We want to keep those toes as relaxed as we possibly can. So again, little gentle presses through, lengthening through those fingertips, just being very mindful that you don't bash into any pieces of furniture or any walls or anything. Keeping that body nice and long and lengthened. Let's keep that head and that neck nice and long. Let's keep that gap between the chin and the chest. Let's keep that space between the rib and the hips for me. Keeping that body as lengthened as we can, trying not to extend through that upper body, and particularly into that thoracic spine, that upper back. Keeping that body as long, lifted as we can. We want to lift into that spine, lifting vertically, not back into extension. So we'll do this just 1 more time, please, everybody. Keeping those fingers nice and long, nice and lengthened. Brilliant. And last repetition. So keeping those feet nice and parallel, we're going to keep that rib cage over that pelvis. We're going to reach the arm up, we're going to allow the hips to come forward, look behind and draw it through. We're going to reach it up, we're going to rotate through and draw it back round, keeping that length through that fingertips, allowing that hip to come forward as we draw it back through. And lift, we're going to rotate through and back, keeping that body nice and connected, keeping that chest nice and lifted, and keeping that space between the chin and the chest. Keeping our bodies as long as we can at all times. Brilliant. Keeping that space between the chin and the chest. Thinking about that length through that body. Let's keep that length all the way through. Now we're going to add on to this action. So we're going to start in that squat position. So the fingertips are down. We're going to reach up, we're going to rotate round, we're going to draw it down. We're going to lift up, we're going to rotate round, reach it through and down. So we're going to lift up and rotate. Keep that body nice and connected, engage those abs and keep that gap between the chin and the chest and keeping that length through that body. Think about that space between the rib and the hips for me, and keeping that gap between the ears and the shoulders. So remember, anytime you need water, then obviously just grab some water. If you get hot and sweaty, then obviously just tie yourselves down. Lovely. Now we'll do that 3 more times, 2 more times, and 1 more time. Beautiful. Now, Lift up nice and tall when it comes to the end of our mat, so just adjust your mat accordingly. Do make sure you're not going to bash into anything. And we're going to do our plank walkout in our full roll down position. So your knees nice and soft. We're going to tuck that chin down, we're going to roll it down, keeping those toes nice and relaxed. When we get down to the floor, we're going to soften those knees. Don't worry about it if you crunch and crack, we're going to take it all the way out into that nice plank position, keeping those abdominals engaged, keeping that back nice and connected. We're going to soften the knees, we're going to walk it back, keeping that body nice and long, pressing it up through the bottom, tuck the chin down, tuck the head down. We're going to roll it up nice and slowly, under control. Lifting up nice and tall for me. We're going to tuck that chin down, we're going to roll it down, keeping everything nice and engaged. Soften those knees, we're going to walk it out, keeping everything nice and engaged, keeping that gap between the chin and the chest, stabilising it into your shoulders. Think about engaging through the fronts of those thighs as we walk back. Do watch out for any necklaces on your teeth. And obviously if you have lower blood pressure, then just come up a little bit slower. So again, just working through a pain-free range of motion. If your hamstrings back to those thighs are a little tight at the moment, then obviously just have those knees a little bit more softened on the way down into that full roll down. And then we'll soften those knees, we're going to walk it back, keeping that gap between the chin and the chest, pressing all the way up for me, rolling up vertebrae by vertebrae, lifting up nice and tall, and then we're going to roll it down, keeping that gap between the chin and the chest. Now from here, we're going to take it into a pike position. So we're going to that upside down V, getting that nice big stretch, back into that pike position, knees soften, we're going to walk it back, and then we're going to roll it all the way up for me. So keeping that gap between the chin and the chest, we're going to tuck that chin down, we're going to roll it down, hands come to the floor, knees soften, walk it out into that plank position, get that nice big deep connection, and then we're going to take it into that upside down V. Again, depending on how flexible you are around your ankles and your calves will depend on whether you can keep your feet flat to the floor. So rolling all the way up for me, lifting up nice and tall, and then we're going to soften down through that breastbone. Again, if you have slippery socks on, you may need to whip them off, keeping that body nice and long, nice and lengthened. Drawing into that upside down V, back into that nice neutral position, soften the knees down, walk it back for me, lifting up nice and tall, and rolling all the way up. Keeping that gap between the chin and the chest, keeping that gap between the ears and shoulders. Again, we're strengthening through those wrists, getting that stretch into that lower back and hamstrings, into that plank position, total body connection, softening those knees, walking it back through. Think about that space between the rib and the hips. And then we're going to do it just 2 more times. So we're rolling down, 3, plank position, into that upside down V position, engaging through, pressing into those hands, back into plank, soften the knees, walk it back, tuck that head down, and we're going to roll it all the way up, and then we're going to roll it down again. Let's keep that gap between the chin and the chest, nice big connection, taking it all the way down, back 3, soften the knees, walk it back. Brilliant, and we're going to roll all the way up. Fantastic. So keeping those feet nice and parallel for me. We're going to get into that lateral side of the body. So we're going to just reach it down into that side bend, and then all the way back up. Now if the back's a little stiff today for whatever reason, stick with this option. If you want to get a bit more of a stretch, then we're going to reach the arms all the way up. Now you may want to just come back a little bit. Again, watch out for any ceiling lights. I'm going to reach it over, and then all the way back up, and through. So we're going to lift up, lengthen, and back over. So we're going to keep that gap between the chin and the chest. Think about that space between the rib and the hips. And keeping that length through that body. elongation. Lovely, and last repetition please. Brilliant. So, we're going to get that nice balance, we're going to do a nice open up through those hips. So, want to have that rib cage nice and over the top of the pelvis. We're going to bring that knee up, open out, in and down. Try not to fall over. So if your balance isn't very good, then also just stand on the floor. Obviously, when it's cold, you've got that toss up between a cold floor, if it's potentially a wooden floor or a stone floor you're working out on, or whether you just challenge yourself with that bit of extra balance and stability around those ankles. So we're going to lift it up, open up through those hips, in and down. Lovely. I'm going to go up, open, in and down, and then lift up, open up through those hips, in and down. Lovely. And draw it up, open through, in and down. Raise it up, open up through those hips, through and down. Brilliant. And up, open, in and down. Up, open, in and down. Fantastic. Let's keep that gap between the chin and the chest. Let's keep that gap between the rib and the hips. Keeping that body nice and long and lengthened. Brilliant. And we'll do that 2 more times. That's on each side, not just 2 more repetitions. And last one. Don't worry if you get the odd ankle crunching, or crunching I should say, that's fine. So let's grab those weights. So we're going to start with a nice cheeky hip hinge and then into a row. So pick up the weights nice and carefully. We're going to have those feet nice and parallel. So I'm just going to be in a side on position. So you want to have those feet nice and parallel, knees gently soften. We're going to open up through that rib cage. We're going to hinge from that hip, keeping that back nice and straight. We're going to squeeze into the back, into that row position. We're going to lengthen the arms down. We're going to hinge up nice and tall. So take a nice deep breath in, breathe out, hinge, engage, squeeze the elbows in, lengthen the arms down, and all the way up. So for this exercise, you can do anywhere from 3 kilograms in each hand, all the way up to sort of 6-8 kilos in each hand. We're firing up the back line of the body. So we're strengthening all those postural muscles, keeping that body nice and connected. So each time we come up, we want to come back to that nice neutral spine position, so that rib cage over the pelvis, keeping that length through that body and keeping that gap between the chin and the chest. We keep that space between the rib and the hips at all times, keeping that body as connected as we can and keeping that gap between the ears and the shoulders. Let's keep everything nice and strong, nice and engaged. Let's keep that length all the way through that body. And we're going to do 2 more, and then we're going to add on team. So, we've got 1 more to go. Again, watch out for your nexus if you have any on. Brilliant. So we're going to add in the tricep kickback. So we're going to hinge it forwards. Squeeze into the backs of the arms into that row position. Take it back into those triceps. You can only extend as your arms will straighten. And then we're going to lift up nice and tall. We're going to hinge it down, keep that back straight. Squeeze it in. Lengthen away. In. Down. And rise. So we're going to take it down. Squeeze it up. Extend back. In. Lengthen. Lift. Take it down. Squeeze it back. Lengthen those arms, in, long, lift up. So you want to keep that gap between the chin and the chest for me. Let's get that gap between the ears and the shoulders. Lifting up nice and tall. So let's really think about the backs of those arms. So again, it's all back line of the body firing up. Keeping that core nice and activated. Keeping that body as connected as we can. Now we have one more repetition to go. Brilliant. So we're going to place one weight down to the floor for me. So if you have a heavier weight, by all means, grab the heavier weight to do this exercise. So we have those feet nice and turned out. So again, you want to work on keeping those hips, knees nice and healthy. So you may need to adjust your foot position as necessary. So we're going to start with the Pilates Sculpt. So we're going to take a big deep breath in. We're going to breathe out and come nice and deep, nice and wide. We're then going to reach the arms up in line with the shoulders. We're going to draw it down. We're going to connect and draw it to those inside thighs. So we're going to take it down to that Pilates Sculpt position. Reach the arms up in line with the shoulders. Draw it back down. Zip it up. So we're going to take it all the way down. Engage, lift up. Keep that body nice and connected. Draw it all the way up for me. So we're going to sink it down, engage. Keep those abdominals nice and connected for me. Keeping that gap between the chin and the chest. So you want to keep that width across that body. Nice long arms. Keeping those abdominals nice and connected. Again, keeping that gap between the chin and the chest. Keeping that space between the rib and the hips. Keeping that body as long as we can. Really thinking about drawing up through the inside thighs as we lift and rise. Keeping those abdominals nice and connected on the way up and on the way down of that double front raise. And we have another 5 to go. For 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Brilliant. So we're going to come back to that bent over position. We're going to stick with one weight and we're going to get right into the backs of those shoulders. So we're going to have those feet nice and parallel. We're going to hinge it forward. So we're going to really keep those abdominals nice and engaged. Keep that spine nice and lengthened. We're going to squeeze back. So we're going to keep that elbow slightly soft. Keeping that gap between the chin and the chest. So keeping that width across that body. Keeping those abdominals nice and engaged. Those abs nice and connected at all times, keeping that back poking straight, keep it switched on here, keep that back nice and straight. And we've got one more repetition. Now draw it up, lift up towards, going to turn around. Keeping those feet nice and parallel. We're going to take a nice big hinge down, squeeze the elbow back and through. Keeping those hand muscles nice and engaged for me. Keeping that gap between the chin and the chest. Keeping that back as straight as you can. Again, remember to keep those abdominals nice and connected. last repetition. Brilliant. So we're going to lift up nice and tall. We're just going to loosen off that back to be working it particularly hard in terms of obviously stabilising. So we're going to do a squat with a nice spinal roll. So feet shoulder width apart, or if you want to keep it a little bit more challenging, have the feet directly underneath your hips. We're going to take it all the way down, keep that body long, stick your bottoms out, tuck that head down, and then we're going to roll up vertebrae by vertebrae, lifting up nice and tall, open up across those shoulders. So we want to keep that width across the body, send that tailbone back, drop that head down, peel it up vertebrae by vertebrae, lifting up nice and tall for me, keeping that space between the rib and the hips. Let's keep that gap between the chin and the chest for me. Lovely, keeping that weight nice and equally balanced. And last repetition. Fantastic. So we're going to come down to the floor now. We're going to start off with our clamshell into our side plank. So, first of all, we've got a knee crunching going on there, is let's get ourselves into our good posture and body position. So we're going to have those heels in line with our bottom, we want the elbow in line with the shoulder, we want to keep that waist nice and lifted up all times. So we're going to open up through those hips into that nice side plank, so clamshell, and then we're going to draw it down. So we're going to rise, open up, squeeze through, really keep this lift here, and draw it down. And lift. Really getting right into those waist muscles for me. And the last repetition. Brilliant. So we'll do exactly the same on the other side, so let's swap ourselves over. So we want to make sure that our elbow is in line with our shoulder, heels are in line with our bottom, and then we're going to open up into that side plank, that clamshell, and drawing down. So we're getting right around the outsides of those thighs as we open up to that top hip, and down, lifting into that waist. Keeping that gap between the chin and the chest. Again, really get that activation from the armpit all the way to the hip. Nice big deep engagement. And last repetition. Brilliant. So we're going to come onto our back. So we're going to start with our nice shoulder bridge rolling up with our hips and taking the arms overhead to increase mobility through that upper body. So first of all, if you've got hairbands, you're just adjusting so you're not digging your hairband into the back of your head. So let's make sure our pubic bone, our two landmarks are nice and level to start with. Arms are going to be down by the side, and let's make sure that we're going to, as we roll our hips, we're going to lift the hips up, take the arms all the way above the head, keeping the body nice and long and lengthened. We're then going to roll down through that spine, leaving the arms above the head, peeling down vertebrae by vertebrae, and bringing the arms all the way back over. So we're going to roll through that pelvis, lift those hips up for me, keeping that body nice and long and lengthened, and keeping that gap between the chin and the chest. And keeping that space between the rib and the hips. So you want to keep that gap between the chin and the chest for me. Again, lengthening away from the fronts of those thighs, sending those knees nice and away. Keeping that gap between the chin and the chest, again, so we're not over tucking that chin down. Keeping that weight into those big toes. Lovely. And we're going to do that 4 more times. Brilliant. And we'll do that 3 more times. Two. And last repetition. Fantastic. So we're just going to scoot now down to the end of your mat. So again, you may want to scoot your mats up. Make sure you've got plenty of space that you're not going to catch your toes around any bits of furniture. So we're going to drop that knee down, so your opposite leg's going to stay at 12 o'clock. Knee's going to come down to this level that pelvis will stay. We're going to slide that leg out nice and long. We're going to roll it back up to the knees in line with the hip and slide back in. So we're going to do what's called a hip release. We're going to drop that knee down, slide out in diagonal, roll that knee back up to the ceiling and pull back in. So we're going to drop that knee down, slide along the floor, draw it through and back up. So we're going to drop that knee down, slide it along the floor, roll it up and back through. So keeping that gap between the chin and the chest, and we want to keep that pelvis as stable as we can, allowing that breastbone to be just nice and heavy. Again, allowing that breath to be as deep and as wide as you possibly can. So we want to keep that head and that neck as long, keeping everything nice and engaged, keeping that space between the rib and the hip for me, and keeping everything nice and long and lengthened. So again, keeping that space between the rib and the hip, keeping everything nice and engaged for me. Think about that gap between the ears and the shoulders. Brilliant. And we've got 1 more on each side. Fantastic. So we're just going to scoot up off some back on our mats of fraction. We're going to open up those hips. The hips should be nice and open now. We're going to grab one of your weights. So ideally you want to have a heavy weight, so anywhere between 3 kilograms up to maybe about 8 kilos. Okay. We're going to take those arms above the head. We want to now make sure we've got those shoulders drawing down, allow that ribcage to be drawing down. We're going to soften that breastbone as we bring the weight above the chest. As we bring it above the chest, we're going to now start to roll up through those abdominals Lift up into that nice upright seated position, and then we're going to roll it down, keeping that rib cage over the pelvis, peeling that spine all the way back down, keeping that gap between the chin and the chest. So you want to soften that breast wing, allow that width across that body, engage, keep it nice and connected, lift up nice and tall. Think about that gap between the chin and the chest at all times. We want to think about trying to keep those heels pressing together, keeping that width across that body, rising up nice and tall each time, and keeping that space across those shoulders. Let's think about that gap between the chin and the chest. And we're going to do that just 4 more times with our feet in this butterfly position. So we've got 3 more times. Two, and 1. So this time we're going to have those legs out nice and straight. Now, we're going to keep that width across that body, so we're going to keep the arms nice and connected. We're going to roll it halfway back, activate those inside thigh. We're going to rotate round to the right, we're going to rotate to the left, back to centre, and we're going to roll it all the way down. So if this is too much for you, then do it without the weight. If you don't have the flexibility in your spine, just go halfway down. Don't worry about the rotation. Just focus on getting that inner range through those abdominals. And then we're going to lift up nice and tall. So we're going to do half roll back, rotate round, centre, rotate round, centre. We're going to continue that on all the way down. We're going to then roll it up. Again, get that rotation. Rolling up, lifting up nice and tall. Almost did. Almost went all the way down without my rotation. Naughty Julie. So up halfway, again, keep it nice and strong. Rotate through. Brilliant. So we're going to roll halfway down, really far out those abdominals, keeping that gap between the chin and the chest. Last one. Brilliant. Right, we're going to come onto our backs. Now we're going to keep that weight above the chest to start with, and then we're going to add the arms in. So, weight's going to come here, legs at 90 degrees. We're going to lengthen out through the leg, pull it up, through the leg, Pull it up. Now we take both arms away, one leg goes away. So we get a width across that body for me, keeping that gap between the chin and the chest. I'm going to do 2 more on each side, please. And 1 more on each side. Brilliant. So feet come down, then put that weight down. I'm going to give those knees a quick cuddle. But if your watch does go to say, have you finished workout, then obviously just dismiss it. It still does actually record, so you don't have to worry about that. So we're going to come on into our cat stretch position. So we want to be in that nice neutral spine, so ribs underneath the hips, wrists underneath those elbows and shoulders. We're going to tuck that head under. If you can feel yourself going into a cramp with your foot, then you may just want to tuck your toes under, like so. If that's more comfortable for you, get a little stretch across your foot. So into that nice cat stretch, tucking both ends of the rib cage towards each other and lengthening out. So if you want to go past neutral, you may do, of course, as long as it stays in that pain-free range of motion. Keeping that width across that body for me, keeping that gap between the chin and the chest. And the last repetition. Wonderful. So we're going to finish off our exercises before we stretch with our opposite arm, opposite leg. So we're going to lengthen that body away, nice and long. So long with the arms, long with the hip, and draw it back through and down. So we're going to lengthen away, keep that body long and connected, put it back in. Let's keep that gap between the chin and the chest. And 1 more on each side, please. Lovely. So again, do you always keep it nice and long and lengthened. Right, we're going to send it back, quick stretch, and then we'll do our main stretch. So keeping that body long, pressing your hands into the floor. Brilliant. So just pop your weights out of the way for me. Make sure you don't wrap your toes around them. And then we're going to soles those feet together. Sliding your heels towards that pubic bone, keeping that width across those shoulders, and letting those knees drop down to the side, do not force them down. Keeping that length all the way through. Brilliant. We're going to take one leg out in front. We're going to lift up out of that hip joint. We're going to reach it forwards, grab hold of those toes, press the heels away for me, and get that nice stretch into the lower back and the hamstrings. then switch it over to the other side. So we're going to lift it up out of those hip joints, press that heel away, reach it forwards, get that nice big stretch. Brilliant. And then we'll take one leg over the top, bring that heel around, sit up nice and tall for me. Bring that knee in, get that nice big stretch into the outside thighs. Lifting up as tall as you can. Fantastic. And then we'll do exactly the same with the other side. So we're going to take that leg across. Remember, if you can't get that leg around, then just keep that leg nice and straight. Lifting up out of that rib cage for me. At the same time, pushing your bottom cheek down to the floor. Brilliant. Right, we're going to come up to a standing position. So we're going to start by stretching out through that chest. So bring those hands behind the body, insert those fingers, draw the shoulders back, look up to the ceiling, get that nice big stretch, take those arms back and slightly raised. Brilliant. So we're going to insert those fingers for me. We're going to round through the upper back, get that nice big stretch. Fantastic. Now take that arm across the body, keep those shoulders drawing down, keep that width across the shoulders, keep that head and that neck nice and long. Brilliant. And take it across the body for me. Fantastic. So we're going to reach the arm up to the ceiling, get that nice big stretch into those triceps. Backs of those arms, again keeping that body nice and long, lifted. Brilliant. And we'll do exactly the same with the other side. Excellent. Now I'm going to stretch out through those quads, front to the side. If you need to hold on, hold on. Put those knees together. Ooh. Or just fall over like myself, really. So again, if you're doing it on a mat, again it will throw you off balance, it challenges the stability across the ankle, knees and hips. And then we'll put that foot down, and then the other side. Again, taking those hips forward. Fantastic. And now we're going to stretch out those calves. So we're going to take one foot in front, one foot behind. We're going to drop that weight forwards, keeping that heel pressing down, keeping those shoulders nice and open. Again, slight hinge at the hips just increases that stretch into the back of the calf. And then switch it over. Again, pressing through that hip calf. Little hinge at the hip. And have those feet nice and parallel, and then we're going to take a nice deep breath in, breathe it out, reach it up to the ceiling, lift up nice and tall for me, take it all the way down, lift it up, nice big stretch now, keep it at the top, nice big lateral stretch over to the side, back to the centre, over to the other side, nice big reach, back to the centre, take it all the way down again, lift it up, and just one more time. Fantastic. Give yourselves a well-deserved clap, and thank you for joining us today for Pilates Sculpt. I hope you enjoyed today's session, and I look forward to seeing you very soon.